Alright, so it is no longer just Yoshi P leaving breadcrumbs for us Final Fantasy fans. Yoshinori Kitase is getting in on the action as well, because a New Year's message that he left on the Square Enix Final Fantasy portal site has got a lot of people speculating on something that could be announced this year that is going to be pretty big. Also, before we get into this little bit of news, if you guys want to click the like and subscribe button to stay up to date with Final Fantasy and gaming news, I would very much appreciate it. So getting to Kitase's quote, his New Year's message for all of the fans, he says, "Development is picking up speed on the title I'm producing, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm sure many of your collective imaginations are running wild trying to picture how we'll recreate some of the game's most iconic scenes, and we'll have more to share about that when the time is right." I'm gonna go ahead and assume E3 is most likely when we're gonna get that big old Final Fantasy VII Rebirth info dump, and I'm sure there will be some stuff leading up to E3 to kind of whet the appetite of a lot of fans. So continuing on with Kitase's quote, "There's also another big announcement unrelated to Final Fantasy VII that I can't say anything about just yet. Rest assured, we are working hard to make sure 2023 is the most exciting year yet." So, obviously, as you can tell, that last sentence from Kitase has a lot of people speculating on what he is talking about. So, this big announcement unrelated to Final Fantasy VII that he can't talk about just yet. If we look online, there are some people speculating that maybe this is the fabled Final Fantasy X-3, and if I remember correctly, the story of X-3 does exist in some form. I think it's in a written form, maybe in a novella of sorts. I don't remember much about it other than Teases is dead. I think something goes wrong with like an exploding blitzball and Teases dies. Someone out there, I'm sure, will correct me and say that I'm wrong on this, but potentially Final Fantasy X-3 could happen. Now, the other two things that stick out to me are, of course, if we go back to the NVIDIA GeForce link, 2 Final Fantasy games were in that list. Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy IX. Now, I don't really know much about the producer side or development side of Tactics in particular, so I don't really know if Kitase had a hand in that game, but that coming back has pretty much been confirmed by that list. And then, of course, Final Fantasy IX. Now, if my 32-year-old noggin is still working properly, I do not recall Kitase having a hand in Final Fantasy IX. He did 7, he did 8, and then he did 10, and then obviously there's some other games down the line like 10-2 that he was involved in. So I'm not sure if Kitase is teasing Final Fantasy IX. We do know that they eventually gotta talk about Final Fantasy IX Remake at some point because it was confirmed on that NVIDIA list. It was confirmed to also be getting an anime, which is probably gonna hit sometime this year. And then of course we had that video from YouTuber Paolo from Tokyo where he visited the Square Enix offices, got a tour, and he even got a chance to interview Toshiyuki Itahana, who was the character designer and illustrator for Final Fantasy IX OG. And again, this dude loves Final Fantasy IX. He's stated before he wants to work on a remake. He's got memorabilia all over his desk. And he even states in that video that he's working on a project right now that he cannot say anything about. So that kind of falls in line with what Kitase is teasing a little bit. But other than that, I don't really know what Kitase could be, hinting towards. It's obviously not 7 related, like he said. So that rules 7 out. I don't think they're going to do any sequels to Final Fantasy VIII, and since Kitase did have a hand with Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X-3 honestly doesn't really sound like that much of a stretch anymore. And to be fair, Kitase does not outright say that this big announcement is related to Final Fantasy. It's just that it's Kitase. He's had a huge role in Final Fantasy and it's shaping up to be a rather large year for Final Fantasy in general, so we're all just kind of assuming it's Final Fantasy related. So whatever Kitase is teasing has me intrigued. For all we know, he could be talking about Final Fantasy NFTs. I don't know. Or maybe he's watched my videos and he's like, you know what? That Curious Corduroy kid, he's got a good idea. We're going to take Dissidia and we're going to reboot the whole franchise and make it a 3v3 fighter. But I would love to hear what you guys have to think in the comments down below. What do you think of this statement from Kitase? What do you think he is teasing? It's not 7 related, so do you think the chances of Final Fantasy X-3 happening are high? Or do you think maybe he's somehow getting involved with a Tactics remake, or even maybe getting involved with Final Fantasy IX? I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.